started. Okay, so intermittent fasting, we're going to go over these 6 different ways to break through a weight loss plateau. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to improve your food quality. Then we're going to talk about starting and tracking calories, like counting calories, counting your macros. Then we'll talk about varying your intermittent fasting schedule. Then we'll talk about taking a diet break, establishing an exercise program, and then we'll talk about how important it is to get good sleep quality to make sure you're losing weight. And then we'll do a nice Q&A at the end. So let's jump right into it. Any questions, let me know. Now let me also pull up the comment section to make sure I can see everything. All right. Okay, so let's first talk about improving food quality. So for example, people come to me all the time, they start intermittent fasting. Let's say you're doing a 16-8 where you're fasting for 16 hours, taking in all your calories within an 8-hour eating window, and you initially do really well. See, most people automatically restrict calories when they shorten their eating window. If you've been eating 4 or 5 times a day, and then you say to yourself, you're only going to eat within an 8-hour eating window, I would say 90% of the people automatically will restrict calories. And that's one of the main reasons why you lose weight. But unfortunately, we're going to talk about this later in the video, there's something called metabolic adaptation. Your metabolism slows down. Maybe you start eating more food than you started out doing. And we're going to talk about how to just get by all that and how to keep the weight loss coming. So the first thing I like to do when someone hit a weight loss plateau when they're intermittent fasting is to really start focusing on food quality. See, so many people when they start intermittent fasting, like I talked about with the 16-8, they don't really necessarily change their diet, and they can do well in the beginning because they're eating less. But if you're stuck and you're having trouble losing weight, the first thing I'd have you do definitely, hey, hello Gillian, I would have you work on food quality. Okay, and my favorite type of diet is definitely that low carb, whole, natural food diet. And what I mean by low carb is pretty much just eliminating all the processed food, all the garbage, all the cookies, the cakes, the processed carbohydrates. Like I've talked about in other videos, there's no such thing as essential carbohydrates. There are essential fats and there are essential proteins. There are amino acids and certain fatty acids that you have to eat for good health. But when it comes to carbohydrates, there are no essential carbohydrates. Whenever your body needs carbohydrates, it's called gluconeogenesis. Your liver will make carbohydrates for you. And in my opinion, all your empty calories, all the bad food are really those carbohydrates. Okay, so my general rule is if you're 150 pounds or less, if you can limit your net grams of carbohydrates to 50 grams or less. And what I mean by net grams is you take total carbohydrates and you minus fiber. So for example, an avocado, which I love, is about like a whole size avocado, maybe about 20-25 grams of total carbohydrates, but it has about 15 to 17 grams of fiber. So for example, you take say 15, you minus it from 20, and you're left with 5 net grams. So what I think is a reasonably, and this is not a ketogenic diet, this is just generally a low carbohydrate diet. A ketogenic diet, when you're eating extremely low carbohydrates, you get down to maybe 20 grams of carbs. This is more like a low carb diet. And I think if you're 150 pounds or less and you're eating 50 grams of net carbs, I think you're going to do real well. It can definitely jumpstart your weight loss if you've been doing intermittent fasting and haven't changed your diet. And then my other rule is if you're over 150 pounds, I think you can go to somewhere around 100 grams of net carbs, which is about 400 calories. And these are pretty reasonable amount of carbohydrates. Okay, let's see, Heather's got a question here. Let's see. So Heather's asking, white rice is an essential part of my daily food intake. It's okay, in my opinion, white rice is just pretty much like a sugar. It's a clean, we're going to talk about it later in this presentation, that there's all different diets you can follow to lose weight, and you can do well going with like kind of a low fat, moderate carbohydrate, as long as you're keeping an eye on calories. But the one diet, I'm going to talk about it later on, that I think will never work is if you're eating like processed carbohydrates with fat, those trigger type foods. If most of your diet consists of, obviously cookies, cake, junk foods, or foods that manufacturers design that have no satiety, they don't really satisfy you, and that you're constantly going to crave, that's the diet that I think will never work. But my favorite diet is the one we're talking about here, which is the low carb, whole food, natural diet. But you can take more of a low fat approach, and like what a bodybuilder would call clean eating, where you're eating low fat, a reasonable amount of protein, and a moderate amount of carbohydrate, and you can do well with white rice. But to me, white rice is like an insulin spiker, kind of like a simple sugar in a way. I would look at it like that. Okay, and then the other thing you really want to eliminate, which I think a lot of people have trouble with, is fructose. See, fructose is processed differently than other sugars in your body. Not like starches, like fructose, which is in fruit, but I wouldn't worry about fruit. It's really high fructose corn syrup from processed food. See, fructose initially, like for diabetics many years ago, they thought it was a health food because it doesn't spike insulin. It goes right to your liver to be processed, just like alcohol. The problem is the liver can only hold, about 50 to 100 grams of fructose, 200 to 400 calories. And once the liver is full with fructose, any excess fructose or any excess carbs you eat that need to be processed in the liver are going to be converted into body fat to triglycerides. So fructose is kind of a sneaky thing. I find that some people, when they hit a weight loss plateau, they're taking in way more fructose than they really realize. And it's mostly coming from processed foods. So if you just eliminate the processed foods, switch to a whole natural food diet, I think you're going to do much better. And in the next slide, you'll see I'm going to give you exact meal recommendations that I recommend, so you'll get a better understanding of all this. And also, the other important thing I find when people hit a weight loss plateau is that they're just not taking in enough protein. See, out of all the macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs, protein has the highest thermic effect. And what I mean by thermic effect is that your body generates heat, like processing and digesting the food that you eat. And when it comes to protein, the thermic effect can be as high as 25 to 30%. So for example, if you're eating like 100, let's say you're eating 100 calories of shrimp, which is pretty much all protein, you're going to burn up 20, 30% of those calories just digesting and processing the shrimp. Plus, proteins are the building blocks of the body. So my general rule is 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight, to me, is like the ideal amount of protein. So for example, let's say you're 150 pounds, you're 20% body fat, so you're roughly like 120 pounds of lean muscle mass, and you want to eat 0.9 grams, you want to eat about 110, 105 grams of protein a day. And obviously, if you're bigger, you're taking in more protein, but it's real important. These are some of the key points I find people make. This is the first step I'll take if you hit a weight loss plateau. Number one, improve your food quality. Clean your diet up. Like I said earlier, 2,000 calories of processed foods, cookie, cakes, and donuts can't compare to 2,000 calories of a whole natural food diet. Right? You want to keep an eye on how many carbs you're eating. If you're 150 pounds or less, 50 net grams. If you're 150 pounds or over, go up to 100 grams. Reduce fructose, and then just make sure you're eating an adequate amount of protein. Let's see what Gillian has to answer. Okay, Mike. I have my last 10 pounds to lose. I have done extended fast, but can't shift this last bit of weight. My calories have been super low and no dairy plus. Okay, you know what? You'll see, Gillian. In your case, and I'm going to talk about this in some of the later slides, you might be in a calorie deficit for too long. And it's something called metabolic adaptation, where your metabolism may have over-exaggerated and slowed down. That's a possibility because it seems like you've been really strict. These extended fasts are really good, and there are things called counter-regulatory hormones that do kick in when you're in a fasted state, like human growth hormone, which minimizes the loss of muscle, makes you maintain your muscle mass, and minimizes you losing muscle when you're fasted, right? Like cortisol, the stress hormone, which helps release carbohydrates in the liver. There are things that I think are better when it comes to fasting as opposed to calorie restriction for minimizing and slow down your metabolism. But when it comes to those last 10 pounds, and if you've been doing these extended fasts consistently, you may have over-exaggerated the metabolic adaptation. And we're going to talk about that in great detail. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think you should do in a couple of the other slides. But let's go over what I think would be a typical, low-carb, whole food, natural diet. Let me just get started. I got these lights hitting my face. I think I started in front of this camera a lot earlier than I typically do because I had all that technical difficulty. Let me go over a typical, how I would break my fast on a lunch, which is what I think is an ideal low-carb, whole, natural food lunch. If you notice here, I have smoked salmon, about 6 ounces of smoked salmon. A general rule is every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, or meat is about 25 grams of protein. So I'm getting 25, 30 grams of protein of smoked salmon right there. Then we got some strawberries. See, the net carbs in strawberries are almost a free food, meaning that the actual digestible carbohydrates is next to nothing in a strawberry because they're so high in fiber. right? So we're getting a little vitamins, minerals, nutrients with the strawberry, plus it makes the meal fun to eat. You eat a couple of strawberries. We're in season now, strawberry season. The next thing is avocado. In my opinion, avocado is a superfood, high in monounsaturated fats, high in healthy fats, loaded with fiber, super high in potassium as well. A typical avocado has about 800-900 milligrams of potassium. The adequate intake for potassium is somewhere around 4,700 milligrams a day. People get nowhere near enough potassium in their diet. Like, for example, a banana, I quote this all the time, only has about 400 milligrams of potassium. So to get the adequate intake of potassium, you'd have to eat, how many bananas? 11, 12 bananas in a day. And I find that's another reason why people hit weight loss plateaus when they're intermittent fasting consistently. They're malnourished. So over time, this stuff catches up with you. That's why it's so important to clean up your diet and eat a whole natural food diet, high in potassium, high in magnesium, with adequate amounts of protein. Okay, and then I also added to this meal, because I want to make sure you're getting enough protein, is like a grass-fed Greek yogurt, which I think is great. 100 calories, 15 grams of protein. So this is a relatively like high-fat, high-protein, lunch, low in carbohydrates. I think this is a great way to eat. Let me give you another example of what I mean by low-fat, whole natural food. This is a little bit of a bigger lunch. For example, this could even be a dinner, very similar. Got some shrimp here, got some good quality protein here. Sardines, I love sardines. Sardines are so incredibly healthy for you. High in omega-3s, high in those healthy fats. There are different essential amino acids, essential fatty acids you have to eat. You want those omega-6s, you want the omega-3s, and you want a good ratio. You want your 3s to be even with 6s. The typical American diet has 15 times the amount of omega-6s from all the vegetable oils and corn oils and all the processed oils that are in foods. You want to even out that ratio. So you want to eat. I'm a little bit of a pescatarian. I really think your diet should be high in omega-3s. Sardines are a great source of omega-3s. Plus, you're getting all the connective tissue. You're getting the bone for the calcium. You're getting the skin. Incredible food, sardines. Some string beans here, sauteed in garlic and olive oil, which is great. I like to eat fermented foods every single day as well. The fermentation process feeds the good bacteria in your stomach. It's so healthy. This is a pickle here, and once again, an avocado. A little bit higher in calories. I think a great lunch. Let me give you a couple of ideas of some dinners, typical dinners that I would recommend. Yeah, this is Arctic chard, my wife's favorite fish. Nice big piece. Hard to tell from the picture how big this is. This is probably like a 12 to 16 ounce piece of fish. I'm getting like at least 50, 70 grams of protein right there. And I always like to go with 2 different colored vegetables. Different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients. So we got cauliflower here and broccoli. This is the way to eat. And if you're noticing from these diets, you don't see any grains. I know Heather talked about rice, which I think it's okay. But, I think if you would compare, say, the same amount of calories to a bowl of white rice, which is, say, 200 calories, to 200 calories of cauliflower and broccoli, you can't even compare. The fiber, even if it's brown rice, not even white rice, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients of cauliflower and broccoli will blow away the amount of nutrients in a bowl of white rice, plus the insulin spike. See, when you eat those simple carbohydrates, you're going to get that spike in insulin, which you want to minimize for good health. And we're going to talk about that in more great detail later. Let's see what the Heather said here. I need to get more strawberries and avocados. Yeah, they're great. And actually, it's interesting. Strawberries and avocado go really good together. I find blueberries and avocados go good together as well. A little bit of that sweetness with the fat and the fiber from the avocado. It's a great combination. Okay, let's pull up one more dinner just to give you another idea, and then we'll go to the next slide. Okay, if you're noticing, if you're catching the trend when it comes to dinner, the portion sizes are bigger, and there's always color when it comes to the vegetables. So we have a big piece of this is salmon steak. I love it. Another big piece for me, probably 16 ounces. My wife would probably be eating half. And that's another general rule I like to say. If you're a petite gal, say you're under 150 pounds and your boyfriend or your husband or your partner, whoever, is much bigger than you, don't eat as much food as they're eating, for dinner and for lunches. If you're eating dinner, I like to say, my wife probably eats half the amount of food I eat. I'm not giving her she's not making a 16-ounce piece of salmon for herself. She's having an 8-ounce piece, right? And also, if you notice the color in the vegetable variety here, we have red beets, we get some nice tomatoes and some arugula. So perfect meal, grain-free, high in healthy fats, high in protein, loaded with potassium, vitamins, minerals, nutrients with the vegetables. So this is what I mean by low-carb, whole natural food eating. So step 1, improve your food quality. Okay, so let's go to step 2. Okay, so the next phase is going to be, meal example, is, okay, this is why I know people are a little reluctant to do it, and one of the reasons why people love intermittent fasting is because you don't necessarily, hey Michelle, how you doing? Let's see what Michelle has to go here, and then we'll go to the next one. Michelle, is a keto or carnivore high-fat diet harmful to your liver, kidneys, or gallbladder? I follow an extremely low-carb diet, keto diet, and wondering if it's okay. You know, most likely I think it's okay long-term to do keto. You know, I personally will not go into ketosis for more than maybe a couple of weeks or maybe a month now and then, but I'm what I call fat adapted. I'm sure Michelle is fat adapted. If you're not familiar with the term fat adapted, that just means that my body runs well on burning fat because I'm used to eating a relatively higher fat, low carb diet. But I don't chase fat like a keto person might do. Like, I don't try to get all my calories from fat. Plus, traditional keto is much lower on protein because even protein can spike, you know, can spike insulin. Like the whole deal with keto is that you want to be in ketosis, where the liver is converting body fat into ketone bodies. And you know, I think it's okay long term. I know people have been on it for years and people do really well. When it comes to kidney, you know, obviously I like to stay in my lane, that if you are concerned about any type of diet you're on, and what I mean by stay in my lane is that I think you should definitely discuss it with your doctor for sure. When it comes to gallbladder, it's kind of interesting. I did a video on even intermittent fasting and gallbladder. There is one doctor that I follow. His name is 𝘒𝙏𝙏𝙏 Longo. He wrote that book, The Longevity Diet, which I love. He's into that fasting mimicking, where, you know, you restrict calories just for 5 days and you get all the benefits of doing an extended fast. Something even that Gillian may want to, you know, look into too. It's called the fasting mimicking diet. You eat about 700 calories a day for 5 days and you get all the benefits of doing just a water fast for 5 days. And he feels, and some other people do feel, that if you don't constantly like spark your gallbladder, get your gallbladder moving, then you're going to have issues and you're going to have gallstones and things like that. But gallstones is more of an issue, in my opinion, and just from, you know, researching this and all the research I did for the video, is that when you go from eating a high-fat diet to quickly, extremely going to a low-fat diet, that it can really stretch your gallbladder. So in Michelle's case, if you're concerned about something like that, like I wouldn't go from a keto, if you've been on keto long-term, I wouldn't switch over to like a low, to a low-fat diet. And when it comes to keto or carnivore, in me, they're tremendously different, even though both can put you in ketosis. But a carnivore diet, you know, obviously is eating all meat, is eating a high protein. True keto is eating relatively low protein. So, you ask a couple of different questions here, but I wouldn't be too concerned about liver, kidneys. The gallbladder, the only concern I would be is to go from one extreme to the next, to go from very high fat to very low fat. Remember, remember when OptiFast, because I'm old, I'm 58. Remember, that's the diet that Oprah Winfrey went on. This was the diet in the 90s. That was when you would drink those liquid shakes that were extremely low in fat, and people were like having tons of gallbladder issues for going to a high-fat diet to an extremely low-fat diet. So that would be my main concern with that. Let's see what Miko's got here. Dr. Eric Rouenda has been keto for 20 years. Okay, great. Definitely check him out for those important questions about long-term effects of safety, as he really helped. I appreciate that, Miko. Yes, I'm not familiar with Dr. Eric Westman, but I will definitely check him out and see everything, see what he has to say about these issues as well. Thanks for pointing that out, Miko. That's great. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. Okay, now when it comes to tracking calories, this is something else that I love to do with people when they hit a weight loss plateau. Because like I spoke about earlier, even though maybe you're doing a 16-8 and initially you restricted calories, once you're doing that for weeks, if not months, especially if you're doing it every single day, and I would call that time-restricted eating, your calories might be creeping up. So one thing you might want to start doing is start tracking calories. And they can also help in both ways. Now, the general thing is maybe you're eating too much, or maybe you might be eating too little. So we're going to cover both of that. Okay? And how I'd like you to start tracking calories is to use one of these apps. My two favorite are MyFitnessPal, which is really simple. And actually, my daughter turned me on to this one, Chronometer. And this is a little bit more complicated because it goes into like vitamins, and you really can track everything. But I think both are really great. And my general rule is, when it comes to calorie restriction, is to be somewhere between 10 to 11 times your body weight. And I think that's a good calorie deficit. So let's say, for example, you've been intermittent fasting, you've been doing 16-8 every day, right? You'll be doing time restricted eating, you're doing it 3 months, maybe you lost 10, 15, even 20 pounds, and all of a sudden you stop losing weight. Like we talked about earlier, number one, you're going to focus on food quality. Number two, I want you to start tracking your calories and also your macronutrients, how much protein, how much fats, how many carbs. And a couple of things you're going to realize. One thing is maybe you've been restricting calories too much. Like you've been in extreme calorie deficit. Say you're 1,000 calories below what I would consider to be maintenance, where you'll be at equilibrium. That could mean that your metabolism is slowing down and like you over-exaggerated that metabolic adaptation, the normal slowdown in your metabolism, so you may want to up your calories, right? The other thing might be is that, you're looking at your calories and you're saying, you know what, whoa, I'm eating way more than 10 times my body weight. So I'm 150 pounds, even though you're only eating maybe 3 meals in an 8-hour eating window, maybe eating 25, 26, 2,700 calories. It's a real eye-opener. I think at one point in your life, everyone has to track calories, has to track macros, and macros are your proteins, fats, and carbs. That's what I mean by macronutrients. At least for a week or two, just so you kind of know where you're at. And it depends how far you want to take it. Like, for example, if you're eating like cashews, right, and you're looking at a bag of cashews, and it says a serving size of cashews is 200 calories. But it also says, 11 cashews are 200 calories. You really have to take 11 cashews out, put them in your hand, eyeball it, and make a mental note that that's around 200 calories. And the only way you're going to know this or do this is if you start tracking. I mean, it's such an important thing to do. It's so eye-opening for me. This was be like the second thing I'd have you do if you hit a weight loss plateau. And it's going to turn out that you're eating too much or you're eating too little. Okay, and when it comes to 10, 11 times body weight, that's kind of an estimate. So say you're 150 pounds, you're eating 1,600 calories on the days you're restricting calories. But you're going to see as we go, further into this live stream, I'm a big believer in cycling your calories. That's what's going to help you with that metabolic adaptation. That's what's going to help you with kind of boosting up your metabolism. Like some days you eat in a calorie restricted state, like 11 times your body weight. Other days you may want to up your calories, 500 calories to maintenance. You'll see, we're going to talk about that more in detail, but just keep that in mind. You're probably eating too much or too little if you hit a weight loss plateau, even with intermittent fasting. Okay, so let's talk about a way we can get around this. So the third thing is I want you to vary your intermittent fasting schedule or strategy all the time. So for example, if you've been doing like 16-8 every single day and you hit a weight loss plateau, you got to start mixing it up. I would say maybe you want to do an 18-hour fast with just a 6-hour eating window. Maybe you want to do a 20-hour fast with only a 4-hour eating window. And just keep in mind, when you do a 20-hour fast with a 4-hour eating window, you're going to automatically be restricting calories. When you're doing a 16-8, you'll be eating more. So it's a great way to automatically cycle your calories. Eat more some day, eat less the other day. And that's going to really help you break through, in my opinion, weight loss plateaus. Because the days you eat more, you're going to boost your metabolism up, like just the thermic effect of protein. The more you eat, the higher your metabolism is. Other days, you're going to be eating less. You can do a 1 meal a day diet, maybe once a week. That's a real calorie restricted day. Maybe you want to do a 24-hour fast once every couple of weeks. Maybe you want to, I like to do a 24-hour fast once a month, right? And this is another concept that I talk about all the time, 2 meals a day. Let's say you're doing 16-8 with 3 meals a day. Maybe you want to try 16-8 with only 2 meals. Maybe you want to do 18-6 with only 2 meals. But the whole concept behind this fourth strategy to break through a weight loss plateau is you have to vary the amount of food you're eating every single day. And if you just vary your intermittent fasting strategy, it's going to happen automatically. Plus, when you're tracking calories, you'll see. If you're using like MyFitnessPal, on the day you're doing an OMAD diet, you may say, I only ate 1,500 calories a day. On the day you're doing 16-8, maybe you ate 2,000 calories. So say maybe you're going from maintenance to deficit, which is ideal for breaking through a weight loss plateau and just keeping the weight loss going until you reach your goal weight. I think it's great. Again, and there's another concept similar, which is like taking a diet break. And let's talk about it in a little bit more detail. Let's look at what Gillian's got here. Okay. You have just opened my eyes about cashew nuts. Oh, thanks. I haven't realized the amount of calories in such a small amount. I know it's so true. That's what at one time in your life, you really have to count calories. I mean, I come from a little bit of a bodybuilding background. I mean, there were times in my life where I actually had a scale and I'm actually weighing everything I'm eating, and I did a podcast on this, talking about how calorie counting for the general population, it's difficult because long term it's kind of hard because you can't keep on just restricting calories. Eventually you'll be eating nothing, right? If you keep on losing weight, you have to cycle your calories, and that's what bodybuilders are so incredibly good at. They count calories, they go into a calorie deficit, but then they do things like cheat days where they increase their calories. They go to maintenance, and that's ideal. So because this metabolic adaptation is actually a good thing. So it's normal. When you lose weight, you're smaller. You require less calories to lift because you're a smaller person, which is good and normal. But you can't over-exaggerate that by restricting calories too aggressively, too long. Like, you can't be in like a 1,500, 1,000 calorie deficit every single day for months on end. Your metabolism is going to slow down more than it should from just normally slowly losing weight. So keep that in mind. Metabolic adaptation is a big thing. And this is the terminology I like to use. Put the intermittent back into intermittent fasting. I did a video on that too, which goes back to the previous slide. You want to vary your intermittent strategy all the time, right? Like we said, do 16-8 one day, do an OMAD the next day, maybe the third day, take a day off, have a cheat day. That's one way of doing it, of taking a diet break. But the other way, which works too, and I do this too, is that if you want to be really strict, like say you want to do 16-8 every single day with only 2 meals a day, right? So you're doing 16-8 2MAD, and you're going to do this for 6 weeks in a row. And say you lose, like I say you lose 15 pounds, and all of a sudden you're saying, my weight loss has really slowed. That may be an indicator to you to do a straight up diet break, to say to yourself, for the next week or two, I'm not going to do any intermittent fasting. I'm going to up my calories. I'm going to make sure I'm at least at maintenance. And another general rule is how I would calculate maintenance, if you're 10 times your body weight, I would increase my calories by anywhere between 500 to 750 calories. So let's say you're 150 pounds again, you've been in a calorie deficit, you're eating 1,500 calories a day. But when it comes to taking a diet break, I would say maintenance, depending upon how active you are, will be 2,000 calories, 2,500, 2,250, 500 to 750 calories. And that's just a general rule, but keep that in mind. Just listen to your body. You can't be in a calorie restricted state indefinitely for extended periods of time. You're going to hit plateaus. You're going to slow down your metabolism too much. So you got to cycle your calories. That's a tremendous takeaway from this. Let's see what Miko had to say. Okay, you're right, Mike. I'm 23-1 doing the OMAD and started sneaking in little spoonfuls of peanut butter as a treat after Thanksgiving. Once I stopped the peanut butter, the rest of the belly fat is gone. That's great. No, yeah, it's true. But that may have been a good thing for you to do now and then. Maybe you needed to up your calories with a little bit of peanut butter, a couple of tablespoons here or there. Increase your calories. You did that for a while. It may have helped, and now you're back strict, and now you're back into a restricted calorie state. You kind of listen to your body. May have been a good approach. Okay, let's see. Miko, I hear you. It's so easy to do that without ever realizing how much extra calories you consume. So true, Gillian. Okay, let's see what Heather has to say here. My husband eats a big spoonful of peanut butter every night. Maybe we shouldn't be. It's hard to say. But what I would do, Heather, is, I don't know if you have a scale. I don't know how far you want to take it, but really do like a tablespoon of peanut butter in a tablespoon, flatten out the top, and then look on the container and just kind of know how many calories it is. You'd be surprised. You do like a hefty tablespoon of peanut butter, you make it 300 calories from it. So just keep an idea of exactly how many calories are in that tablespoon. Be a little more controlled about it. Okay, let's talk about the next thing. So we got our diet breaks. Let's talk about another way you can break through a weight loss plateau. Another one is you got to do some type of exercise. As you know, I'm a fitness trainer. I've owned the gym for 30 years. I probably work out too much. There's a time in my life when I was like overtraining. I'm very reasonable about my training now and how I prescribe exercise programs for people. I try to create a response with the minimal amount of time. I'm somewhat of a minimalist. Oh, Angie's here. Let's talk about Angie. Hey, Angie, let's see. How long with restriction of calories does it take to lower metabolism that's difficult to reverse. You know, okay, look at like this. No matter what, whenever you lose weight, your metabolism will slow down to some degree. Because just think you're smaller. Right? Your maintenance, if you used to be 200 pounds and now you're only 180 pounds, you're a smaller person. Your basal metabolic rate, you don't need as many calories to survive. And it's normal and it's good. But that can be over exaggerated, and it's hard to give you a concrete answer. But I say if you're aggressively restricting calories, say over 1,000 calories a day, and you're doing it for extended periods of time, hard to say how long. Whether it's my general rule is I wouldn't restrict calories too aggressively for more than 5-6 weeks. Not even aggressively, even 500 calorie deficit. If you're going to restrict calories every day, 500, 700 calories every 5-6 weeks. I think I would take a diet break. But I think a better strategy, which we'll talk about, I definitely want to talk about this with you in the call, is I would still rather you put the intermittent back into intermittent fasting and just constantly be going into a calorie deficit, maybe 500, 700 calories one day, the next day up to maintenance. Initially, I'd probably want you to, to track your calories with one of those apps, but over time, it's going to become instinctive. And it's kind of like, I hate to say it's not that it's too late, because you can always turn things around. But once you've hit that plateau, you created that environment within your body where even hormonally, where things are off, and you kind of hit a weight loss plateau. So the whole idea is to do these things and never hit the weight loss plateau. Just slowly, consistently, get to your goal weight. Thanks, Angie. I appreciate it. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about the exercise program, right? There's a couple of things I want you to do. First of all, I do want you to do cardio. Your cardio means aerobic training for a couple of reasons. First, you want a strong heart. You want a strong cardiovascular system. And there's two types of workouts I like. I like that fasted cardio, like that long, easy cardio. In my mind, there's nothing better you can do for your health than taking like a nice long walk. I actually walked for 2 hours today. New York was like 99-degree heat. I know where Heather is. It's like crazy hot. She puts pictures. Actually, Heather's helping me with grow my YouTube channel. She's great. She's really giving me a lot of help. And she posts things on Instagram. I think she's in California, and it's like 120 degrees, something crazy. But I walked today 2 hours in a fasted state right before this video. I just drank a lot of water along the walk. I took some water with me. And I burned a lot of body fat, and it's like, I love it. It's like meditating when you're moving. So if you hit a weight loss plateau, let's say you're doing everything right I just discussed, right? You got good food quality, right? You're varying your intermittent fasting strategy. You're cycling your calories, right? You're eating a whole natural food diet, and you still hit a weight loss plateau. Maybe you're not exercising. Maybe you got to do some cardio. So I love fasted cardio first thing in the morning. I've had a number of clients. The only change I made to their program is to have them take like a 45-minute walk first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, maybe a cup of black coffee, a cup of green tea, get your sneakers on, get outside, you got a treadmill in the house, walk for 45 minutes. I think it's great. The other thing I'd love you to do is a little bit of high intensity. This is like HIIT cardio, but this is just short. Where you spike your heart rate. So for example, let's say you're walking outside, right? And then you just go into a little bit of a run for 1 minute, spike your heart rate to maybe 80% of your max heart rate, recover. Just do that a few times. That high intensity cardio doesn't have to be long, but it should be relatively hard, a little bit uncomfortable, and maybe you do 3, 4, or 5 30-second to 1 minute intervals. The whole workout lasts 15 minutes. I have all videos on this. I'll link them below this video if you want a little more detailed explanation. But if you just did a HIIT cardio maybe once or twice a week, 15 minutes twice a week, and then these long fasted walks as often as you possibly can, that's going to help you break a weight loss plateau. Plus, it's great for health. And then you have to do some type of resistance training. You want to maintain your muscle mass, if not increase your muscle mass. That's what's going to increase your metabolism. When you're losing weight, it's so important to maintain your muscle mass. That's also going to minimize the slowdown in your metabolism, because muscle requires energy just to survive on your body. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to go to a gym. I've had tons of videos on my YouTube channel all about this. If you just did like some body weight squats, some body weight lunges, like some push-ups off the floor, if you're not strong enough, you do them off a counter. You do some planks. You spend 15 minutes 2-3 times a week doing some resistance training, you're going to do incredible. It's going to help you break through a weight loss plateau. It's going to help make you look and feel better. So let's break this down. Let's say you did 2 45-minute walks in a fasted state a day. You did 2 10 to 15 minute hard cardio workouts, and then you did 2 to 3 15-minute resistance training workouts. We're only talking less than 3 hours of exercise within the week. You're going to be fitter and healthier than like 99.9% of the population if you just devoted about 3 hours of your week to exercise. But do it. It can really help, okay? And let's go over the final step, and then we'll review the whole thing. So the final step, and this is something that's really neglected too, is not getting enough sleep. Like there were actually studies to show, even with someone like myself, who I consider myself in pretty good shape. I eat incredibly well. I'm fat adapted at a whole natural food diet. I own a gym, I work out all the time. But research has shown that if I have a bad night's sleep, let's say I only sleep 3-4 hours one night, do you know that I'm gonna be insulin resistant the next day? Meaning that when I eat food, my pancreas is going to produce insulin, which is that storage hormone, to store away those excess calories like they should be in my muscle and my liver, even in my fat cells, because actually it's protective. Because you don't want your blood sugar to go too high and wind up with diabetes and metabolic syndrome and all that. Insulin is a good hormone. It helps you store away those excess calories. That means I won't be able to do that properly just from lack of sleep for one night. So if you're doing everything else right, like your good food quality, right? You're cycling your calories, you're working out, you're eating a whole natural food diet, you're taking a diet break now and then if you have to, and you still hit a plateau, and you're still not losing weight, you have to look at sleep. I was going to add another slide on stress too, but I would say the same thing. You have to look at sleep, and if you're stressed out, and cortisol. So cortisol is the stress hormone. If you're not sleeping, hey, James is here from Portland. Hey, James, thanks for joining in. That's great. If that cortisol, if your stress hormone is chronically elevated, you're going to be insulin resistant. It's going to be hard for you to lose weight, and you're going to have trouble. So really, and I actually did this because it's interesting. Being a fitness trainer and owning a gym, unfortunately, the hours are brutal. I've been waking up at like 5 o'clock for the last like 25, 30 years. My first client every day is like 6 in the morning. And Saturdays, I generally start a little bit later. I start at 8. But for like 15 years, I had a female client. She was great. But I had her at 6 o'clock too on Saturdays even. But now I got a little older, I stopped doing that. There were times in my life where I just was not getting enough sleep. And if you're only sleeping 4, 5, 6 hours and you're not getting sound sleep, you have to take steps to improving your quality of sleep. And this is what I did, and it made a big difference. And now this is hard for me. Not to stop eating. This is easy for me. Like stop eating 3 hours before bedtime. If you're on an intermittent fasting protocol, most likely, hopefully you're doing this anyway. But some people, or maybe breaking their fast late in the afternoon, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and maybe they're eating 9, 10 o'clock at night, their last meal. But I'd much rather you stop eating 3 hours before bedtime. It's going to improve your quality of sleep. No, for sure. Okay. Minimize electronics. That whole thing with blue light. If you notice the glasses I'm wearing, I'm not sure if you can see it. These are called gunner, and they have a kind of an amber tint to them. This is blocking 85% of the blue light. See, I spend a lot of time in front of LED screens, like I'm making these videos, and even the TV at night when I watch TV or when I'm on the laptop. I don't want the blue light. That's what's going to keep you up. But you do want the blue light in the morning. If you notice the last part of this slide, see, if you get more sunlight during the day, like your normal circadian rhythms, like your normal internal clock, you're supposed to wake up in the morning, have sunlight hit your body, hit your retina, get in your body. That's going to help you sleep better at night. It may be counterintuitive, it's just how it works. But you want to minimize the blue light at night. So try to minimize the electronics. If you want to go with these blue glasses, get them. I like this brand a lot. It's called Gunner. I'll put a link below this video too if you want to check them out. Do that. Another thing I did, which made a big difference, and I didn't think it would make such a difference, but it did. I really blackened out my bedroom. And I'm talking about, blacking out. There's no LED clock light in my bedroom anymore. Nothing. I got like blackened curtains. My wife's sleeping so much better too. Plus, we have a king size bed and we're distant, from each other. We're sleeping at night, I would do that. I'd block it out the bedroom, nice comfortable environment to sleep in, with your bed. Another thing too, I like to keep the bedroom cool. I sleep so much better. My wife does too when the bedroom is cold. In the summertime, we keep our thermostat pretty cold, 68. That's another thing that helps you with weight loss. you know, it's interesting. Not that you're going to be shivering in the cold, but just coldness. Shivering does help you lose weight and increases brown fat in your body, which is thermic, which helps you burn body fat. Another thing we didn't talk about, I did other videos on that, like taking cold showers, cold exposure. Shivering, actually, like being jittery, like being fidgety, actually helps you burn extra calories too, helps you lose weight. But just living in a cooler environment, a cool bedroom will make you sleep better. Plus, it's going to it'll make your body create heat, which is also going to help you lose weight and burn some calories. Another one, this is kind of obvious, no alcohol late at night. If you like to drink alcohol, I like to drink wine on occasion, you're better off drinking the alcohol earlier in the night. It seems like, you know, the research is showing if you drink alcohol late at night, yes, you will fall asleep probably easier because you might kind of like pass out. But then you wake up and you're wired, plus the sugar. If you're going to drink alcohol, I think try to have it more like a cocktail before dinner. Like say you're eating dinner 7 o'clock, have a drink around, have a glass of wine around 6 o'clock to relax, but then don't have it after dinner. No drinking late at night. Let's see what Gillian has to say. This information has been so valuable. I'm definitely ready to make some better changes. Ooh, that sounds great. Oh, I appreciate you joining the live stream. This is great, Gillian. I really appreciate it. That's great. Okay. You know, no late night alcohol. Now, another thing too, these are things you may want to try. I tried this. I don't do it now, but I know a lot of people like it. You can take melatonin anywhere between 1 to 3 milligrams. Tryptophan, you know, like in turkey, the amino acid helped you fall asleep. I forget the doses. I was taking tryptophan. One of my favorite bodybuilders, he's right behind me, Frank Zane. You know, let me switch. I'll show you what I mean by Frank Zane. I can give you a different camera angle. See, that's Frank Zane, like right over here. I know I'm blocking myself now, but that's Frank Zane. He's a big believer in taking tryptophan, which will help you sleep at night. He actually rotates it, holding melatonin one night. That's another technique people like to do because they don't want their body getting too used to anything. They take melatonin one night, being able to take tryptophan another night. Oh, that's good. Yes, Andrea agrees with Gilly. I appreciate it. That's really great. And that's like I talked about earlier. Sunlight, more sunlight during the day helps you with your circadian rhythm. Okay, so let's review. Let's just go over this whole thing, and then we'll do a Q&A at the very end on any general questions you want to ask me. So if you hit a weight loss plateau, and even if you're not intermittent fasting, I think all these 6 strategies can really work. But since I talk about intermittent fasting a lot, I wanted to gear it towards intermittent fasting. So if you hit a weight loss plateau, number 1, you're going to improve your food quality. And like I talked about, my favorite diet is that whole food, low-carb, natural diet, right? You're going to start tracking your calories and your macros. You're going to use MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, or anything. You got to track your calories. Either you're eating too much or you're eating too little, right? And you're over-exaggerating to slow down your metabolism, right? You're going to vary your intermittent fasting strategy, right? So you're going to do 16-8 one day, maybe OMAD the next. You're going to mix it up. You're going to cycle your calories. So even if you're not intermittent fasting, you're just going to cycle your calories. If you're counting calories, eat 10 times your body weight one day, eat 500 calories over 10 times your body weight the next day to maintenance. General rules, right? If you've been in a calorie restricted state for more than 5-6 weeks, you're going to take a diet break. Another thing you can try if you hit a weight loss plateau. You can up your calories for a week or 2, boost up your metabolism, and then you can just go right back into calorie restriction for 5-6 weeks. Another way. A 5th thing you're going to do is you're going to establish a good exercise program. You're going to do some cardio training. You're going to do some resistance training. Doesn't have to be much, but you have to do it. Super important. And then the 6th and final thing you're going to work on is you're going to improve your sleep quality. You don't want to be insulin resistant. You don't want cortisol, the stress hormone, to be over-exaggerated. And like I said, what I didn't mention, but I think is a big factor too, is just anxiety and stress in general. You know, I'm a little bit of a meditator. I do this thing called 4-7-8 breathing all the time. I did videos on it where you take a breath in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, breathe it out for 8 seconds. This is the 𝘒𝘾𝙏𝑆 technique. Remember you wrote the book, like 7 weeks to Optimal Health? I've been doing 4-7-8 breathing for years. I love it. It's the simplest way. It's like a 2-minute meditation. I do it multiple times during the day. Whatever you have to do in your life, even walking and exercising, is going to help reduce stress. But sleep and stress, also important factors. Okay, so let's see. Thanks, Andrea Gillian. She agrees totally. Awesome. Okay, so let's see, guys, gals. Any questions you have at all on these subjects? And sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, you know, when it comes to answering questions. If you want to ask a question, you know, with these live streams, always like a minute, like a 60-second maybe delay. So any questions about fitness, health, nutrition, weight loss, just in general? Okay, so Michelle's got a question here. Let's see what we got. Okay, I know I'm probably low on calories intake. The problem is that when I eat nutrient-dense foods, I get full very easily without many calories. Any tips on eating enough calories without feeling overstuffed? That's interesting. So I know you mentioned keto and carnivore. It's a little bit easier, I think, if you're taking in most of your calories from fat. But like I said, don't chase fat. But foods like, like avocados and nuts are a great way to get calories, without overdoing it. And in my case, like when I would say about 60% of my calories do come from fat. Maybe 30% protein and maybe 20% or less, even maybe 10-15% carbohydrates. And you don't see me, like I don't put butter like on my vegetables. I don't put butter on my meat. I don't like squirt mayonnaise on things like maybe someone who's doing keto might do to just to up their fat calories. But by eating a whole natural food diet, like I eat salmon almost every day, sardines, I eat an avocado every single day. I eat almonds like in walnuts and pistachios. And just by eating these whole natural foods, which I find are like really satisfying, and you don't even have to eat that much of them, your macros are going to fall into that range. So what I would recommend to you is I would pick like higher calorie whole natural foods like nuts, like avocados, like fatty fishes like salmon, mackerel, things like that. And hopefully, even if you have a little bit, even just a 4 ounces of smoked salmon, like that meal I pulled up here. I don't know if you were here in the beginning of the show. I had some meal examples. Let me show you this one right here. This is what I mean. Like, look at this. This is not much food here, but this is going to be really satisfying. High, see that the smoked salmon here, high in fat. I don't think you even have to go this much. This is about 6 ounces. In your case, you're a smaller guy. You go 4 ounces of smoked salmon. You're going to get 25 grams of protein. You got half an avocado here. I mean, I don't think you're going to be bloated from this. I think you're going to get so much nutrition. When I say calories, I don't know, maybe this is about 500-600 calories right here. I think you can do really well eating along the lines of this. And also check out my Instagram page, 𝘾𝙾𝘾𝙃. I do this almost every day. It gets a little redundant sometimes because I personally eat a lot of the same foods every day, but I post pictures of all my foods when I break my fast and all along the lines of this. I think you might find it helpful. Let's see what Angela got here. We got counting calories. I've got down totally, but counting my macros. Never really done that. Yeah, essentially, I think you're going to find that. I don't know, Andrew, if you counted calories just from looking up at a book, but if you use those apps like I talked about, which I'm going to want you to do, I'm going to want you to do Chronometer because it's so specific. Not only is it going to tell you your protein, fats, and carb in a chart and a graph, it's also going to tell you how much vitamin K, how much vitamin D, how much potassium. It's really cool. It's really eye-opening. You're going to find holes and links in your diet. Okay, that's another general thing I have. If you're missing anything, if you're low in potassium, even if you're low in vitamin D, if you're low in vitamin K, it's going to manifest itself in some way. It's going to make you hungry. It's hormonally going to throw you off. It can put you in a malnourished state where you go into a starvation mode and then your body over-exaggerates to slow down your metabolism. Besides eating the right amount of calories, you also have to make sure there's no nutritional deficiencies, which can lead to issues as well. And when you really count calories in these apps, it's so eye-opening to me. It's to myself too. I've never put anyone on who hasn't done it, who hasn't gotten like tremendous benefit from it. I know it's a little hard to do, but once all your foods are already in there, it's like you create your own food library, and then it can become so easy. Okay, let's see. Steven's got a question here. Okay, Steve. I want to ask about resistance training days. When muscle groups should you cycle, on what types of lifts with general rep set might be too much to go over? Yeah, a little bit, Steve. Actually, my last 2 live videos ago, go to the YouTube channel and go into the live section. I did a whole hour-long video on this exact topic, on exactly how you can burn fat and put on muscle at the same time. And I go through everything in great detail. Plus, I have other things. But it sounds like you're, Steve, a little bit more into working out. This was more for someone who's like really hasn't been working out. But like I talk about all my routines. Someone like yourself, like I would say, I like an idea where you do a full body like on a Monday. And if you go into the gym, you really do like one good hard work set. You just do like a 45-minute full body day. Wednesday, maybe you just do a split. You do lower body. Friday, you do upper body, and you do a little bit more volume on those days when you're doing just upper body and lower body. I think 10 total sets per body part per week is what all the research is showing is ideal. I like to do more metabolic stress type training. Just quickly, there's 3 general ways in which you grow muscle. One way is muscle tension. Now you lift heavy weights, progressive resistance, you create a response. The second way is muscle damage. You make those little tears in your muscles. They recover. They get bigger and stronger. And the third way is metabolic stress, where you pump the muscle up. You close the muscle down, metabolize buildup in the muscle. It creates a protein synthesis, a training response. I do more training like that because I'm 58 and I'm kind of banged up. I'm not sure how old you are, but a combination of all of those I think is great. And then I do my long, easy walks. I do a 2-hour walk 2-3 times a week. I know that's excessive. You don't have to go that far. And I try to do 2 HIIT training workouts. So to me, three resistance training workouts, 2 or 3 long walks, 2 short HIIT workouts. And I have this in much greater detail in other videos, but I appreciate the question. Let's see. Yes, Andrew, I definitely got Chronometer for sure. I think you're going to find it really helpful for sure. Michelle, thanks for the excellent advice. I really enjoy it. Oh, thanks, Michelle. I appreciate you tuning in. This is great. You got a nice smile too. That's great. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Any other questions out there before we go? Could be on anything, fitness, health, nutrition, weight loss, anything at all. I'm like, I forgot to tell everyone. I was supposed to tell everyone, give me like a thumbs up during the video. It's on YouTube. The more like thumbs up, the more likes you get. Like the more YouTube, it's all with this YouTube is so much of it. I think even though you're making good videos, it's who they show their videos to. The more likes I get, the more times the algorithm of YouTube will show this video, so we get more people in the room. I should have said that earlier in the live stream, but I'm so glad we got a pretty good turnout today. This was great. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I was sweating during this thing. I mean, I had all those technical difficulties in the beginning of this live stream, the first time that ever happened. I normally have multiple camera angles. I had 3 different cameras. I'm using only the one camera this whole time, which which I lost in the beginning. Okay, let's go. So Andrew, I'm gonna email you later today. I just want to ask you one more question. The main question, just so I'm doing a one-on-one with Andrew over the weekend, which is great. The main question I'm going to want to ask you is I want to make sure you get a lot out of the 1 hour session. Even besides answering all those questions, I just want to know what's the main takeaway. I want you to end that 1 hour session really satisfied and really happy with all the information. So I just want to know what's the main thing you want to get out of the 1 hour session. But I'm going to email you later. Okay. So any other questions, anyone? Okay, fantastic. I really appreciate you tuning in. All right, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Oh, we got one more, James. Okay, let's see what James got. Okay. Love the look and style of your vids. Oh, makes the great content. Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, James. I try to mix up a little bit. I got a bunch of different colored lights behind me, and it's funny. Some people don't like the skeleton. Some people find it a little creepy. I like it. At one point I did a whole bunch of videos on anatomy. I don't think they did too well because they were kind of technical. You have to kind of be really into anatomy. I did origin, insertion of muscles, and I kind of used the skeleton. I said the bicep starts here, ends here. If you're interested in that stuff, look on the homepage of my YouTube channel. I broke down in great detail. If you want to develop your biceps, I break down all the muscles in the bicep, the origin, insertions, where they start and end. That's what they mean by origin, insertion of a muscle. I used to do a lot of videos like that, but I think they were maybe a little too technical. People didn't like them too much, but I think it's good content. So that's why I got the skeleton there. I got my Frank Zane, my favorite bodybuilder. Brilliant, helpful, easy to. Oh, thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate it. And then I got Elvis. I'm a big Elvis fan, and I play guitar, so I got some guitars in the background and all my different lights. So I really appreciate it. Also, thanks, Miko, too. Thanks. That's what also so much friendly. Oh, I really appreciate it, Miko. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for all the kind words. That's great. All right. Well, take care, everyone. Once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to do this once every week. We're going to do a nice long live stream once every week. I still haven't, committed to an exact time with my schedule, but I'll try to do one long one. And I'm even thinking about maybe fooling around with Facebook and doing shorter, maybe even almost maybe multiple times during the week. For example, taking one of these slides, one smaller topic, doing maybe a 15-20 minute thing on Facebook and see how that goes too. So, okay. Any suggestions or any topics you guys want me to cover, always let me know. I can easily do a live or video on it. Okay, well, take care, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care.